First of all, Mr. Minister, Mr. Ambassador, Presidential Advisor Colleen, Jim Jones, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here today. And Jim, thank you very much for those kind words. You may be asking, after Jim Jones presented a convincing dialogue on why we need to emphasize the commonalities in our relationship, we're starting on the diplomatic side with Syria, which, as many people know, is seen often as a headache, or in Turkish, a baş belası in the relationship. I'm here to tell you today, not necessarily. We have in the past, we have now, and we will have more in the future, very close cooperation on this important geostrategic issue. We've heard from the leader of the American Chamber, from TAKE, other Turkish business leaders, the importance of the economic and business pillar of this relationship. The geostrategic pillar is very important as well. What I will try to demonstrate in the next few minutes is how important Syria is to that role, and in particular, why from the Balkans to the Caucasus Black Sea to Afghanistan and into the Arab world, there is no geostrategic issue in much of Eurasia that the United States and our friends and allies can succeed in without the strong support of Turkey. So let's get to Syria and what we're doing together. Again, there are issues that we're working through right now, particularly in the northeast of Syria, but take a step back and look at what our goals are and how they mesh with Turkey's. The United States looks at the Syrian crisis, which is extremely complicated. You've all been following it for now almost a decade, since 2011, with three numbers: 5, 3, and 6. 5 are the 5 outside conventional armies, state armies that are active in Syria. This is something new since the Yom Kippur War 40 years ago in the Middle East. That's Russia, Iran, Turkey, the United States, and, at least in the air, Israel. And that creates all kinds of potential threats, dangers, and needs to keep things under control. 3 are the 3 goals that we and many of our partners share to resolve this very dangerous internal and international conflict. One is the enduring defeat of Daesh, and we have made great progress with the defeat of the Caliphate as a state along the Euphrates last month, but there's a lot of work still to be done throughout and beyond Syria. 2, a political process that will give us a different Syrian behavior vis-a-vis the people of Syria and vis-a-vis the country's neighbors. Right now, only 60% of Syria is under the control of the Assad regime. Half of the population has fled the regime's areas to other areas of Syria not under the regime's control, or to Turkey, which has played a huge role in receiving refugees, Lebanon, Jordan, and beyond. The country is not receiving economic or reconstruction assistance because no one in the world really trusts Assad. Finally, we have the goal of, as part of a final conclusion to this conflict and the withdrawal of foreign forces, all Iranian-commanded forces out of Syria, because they are a huge threat to the neighborhood and to the region. 6 are the 6 things we need from this government. The state of Syria. America is not pursuing a regime change strategy. We're pursuing a regime change in behavior strategy. We need this regime to renounce chemical and nuclear weapons definitively. We need it to stop supporting or allowing its territory to be used as refuge for terrorism. We need it, again, to ask the Iranians to go home as part of a solution to this conflict. We need it in other ways to stop threatening its neighbors or allowing people from Syria to threaten neighbors. We need it to account for all of the war crimes, all of the terror, all of the horror, the almost 500,000 people, mainly civilians, who've died in this conflict. And finally, we need that regime to create a warm, a positive approach to the many people who have fled so that they may return and help rebuild that country. So those are our goals. How are we doing? Again, the defeat of Daesh as a state has been accomplished. There's still a lot of work to be done, but that was an important goal. It was an important accomplishment. Again, and I'll get to this in a second, Turkey played a big role in that and is going to continue to play a big role with its overall policies towards Syria and the enduring defeat of ISIS as a potential insurgent force. We are working on the political process through the UN to de-escalate the conflict and to reinvigorate the political process. The new UN envoy, Geir Pedersen, has done good work, and we're fairly confident that we will be on the road to a new constitutional committee, constitutional revisions that will make the country more reflective of the needs of its population, and, very important, free and fair elections under UN supervision to ensure that we get a Syria that does not create the horrors of the last decade. So where are we with Turkey on all of this? Again, we have some problems, and I'll get to them in the Northeast, but by and large, we have general agreement on these goals. We recognize, as does Turkey, that there are threats to Turkey as a NATO ally emanating from Syria. There has been a long-term threat from the PKK and its offshoots, where America has been helpful in the past, particularly in the 1990s. There is a new threat from Daesh. Daesh, again, has been defeated as a state, but it can come back. There is a threat from the Syrian regime itself, as we have seen. It has a dozen different ways it can make life uncomfortable for all of its neighbors, and we hear this from all of its neighbors. Do something about that regime's temptation to meddle in the security of its neighboring countries. That's very, very important. And of course, the presence of Iranian and Russian forces and the possibility that they will expand their capabilities, their offensive potential and such, is of great concern to Turkey as it is to us and everyone else in the region. So we work closely with Turkey on a variety of issues. One of them is the political process, where Turkey, as a member of the Astana group with Iran and Russia, basically serves as the voice and representative of the Syrian opposition, the half the population that has turned their backs on the Assad regime. And this is absolutely crucial to achieve the UN goals in this country. Turkey also occupies considerable terrain in the northwest of the country, ensuring no vacuum will be created that forces inimical to Turkey and to the rest of us or the regime can enter. This is extremely important to try to achieve a final outcome of this conflict. Thirdly, Turkey has worked with us against Daesh. As few countries know, Turkey is one of the 3 or 4 countries, including Iraq and Syria itself, that has put ground forces into the fight against Daesh, losing many scores of soldiers in the fight and for Euphrates Shield. And it's continuing to keep those areas clear of Daesh. That's extremely important for our overall approach to that country. Turkey has also facilitated through its bases in Turkey and its other diplomatic and military activities, the coalition, the 79 country and organization coalition's fight against Daesh in Syria and in Iraq and elsewhere. That's all very important. We're also working with Turkey in that one area where we haven't reached full agreement yet, which is the Northeast. Turkey has very important security concerns. President Trump has acknowledged those publicly and in conversations with President Erdogan. The United States also has its own security concerns, including with the people that we fought with against Daesh. and working out a way forward is something that we're very intensively doing right now. The main idea, without getting into the details, is a safe zone in the north where the YPG forces, who are an offshoot of the PKK, would pull back, and we would work with Turkey to ensure that that zone remains free of any threat to Turkey and contributes to stability. Again, we're continuing on with these talks. We hope to make further progress, but we're also quite optimistic that, taken across the board, we have a very strong partner in Turkey in this conflict. If you look at where we've been since August, not because I took over the job then, but simply because of changes in the relationship between Russia, Turkey, the United States, Israel, and other countries, you see Daesh defeated. You see a frozen conflict, including in Idlib, where President Trump took a very strong position supportive of Turkey back in September by calling publicly on Russia not to go in, saying it would be a reckless escalation, supporting the diplomacy that led to the Sochi agreement between Russia and Turkey on a ceasefire in Idlib. That's also very important for us. We've also, again, reinvigorated the political process through the UN, and taken together, we think that today we have a much stronger basis to go forward with Turkey and with our other partners and allies in the region and in the 79 nation and organization coalition to secure that region. So once again, I hope I've made a pitch for the importance not only of Turkey to all of our geostrategic activities in the region, but for its importance to this very crucial question of Syria. Thank you very much.